Hello and welcome to Cryptid by State, Maine. Here we are the first Monday of the new month, and we are continuing our Cryptid by State journey. Today we are looking at the state of Maine, which made a surprising jump in votes, and it managed to take over all the other states we currently have left. This entry is the 20th state in the series, and we are soon approaching the halfway mark. I am thinking that in 5 more states, we'll be making a separate video indicating how we got to where we are, and more importantly, which states remain. With all that said, please join me in our continuing Cryptid family road trip as we travel from the previous location of Tennessee and head to the New England state of Maine. Before Maine became the state that we know today, it was originally inhabited by a few tribes of Native Americans, including the Penobscot, Abenaki, Wabanaki, and Passamaquoddy. Then, in 1525, Portuguese explorer Estevão Gomes encountered and mapped the coastline for the Spanish, but none of his party actually set foot in the area. It wasn't until 1604 when a French explorer named Samuel de Champlain came to the area which he called Acadia, and made the first European settlement on St. Croix, which is also known as Dauchet Island. Not long after this, other settlers would venture into the area, and soon wars would erupt over who actually controlled what parts. Some of these battles would later be resolved at the end of the French and Indian War, but others labored on for quite some time. In 1674, a group of Dutch people managed to briefly take over the area we previously talked about, Acadia, and they renamed it Nova Hollandia, which means New Holland. Over the next few years, up until the 18th century, there were many battles for control of land which primarily focused on a three-way war between the French, British, and the native Wabanaki Confederacy. It is interesting to note that in 1779, the British had originally planned to seize parts of Maine and call it New Ireland, but this fell through by the end of the Treaty of Paris. Finally, on June 19, 1819, a committee was set up to separate Maine from Massachusetts, and on March 20, 1820, Maine officially became the 23rd state of the U.S. Maine's flag has changed a few times through the years, but the version that we know was adopted on February 23, 1909. I was unable to uncover who actually is credited with this version, though. Even though it may appear simple in design, there are a lot of state-specific symbols included. In the center of the flag is Maine's state seal. The two main symbols are that of a farmer on the left and a sailor on the right, which represents the state's reliance on agriculture and the sea. Between these figures is a shield that houses the famous pine, of which the white pine is the state tree. Underneath this is a moose resting, and it happens to be the official state animal. Behind this, many assume it shows blueberry bushes, which is the state berry. Above all this is the North Star, with the state's motto of Dirigo, which is Latin for I direct or lead. It should be noted that unlike most flags, this one doesn't have any specifically mandated colors for how it should look, although it is stated that a yellow silk fringe should surround the border, but for some reason, this is rarely included. I don't think I need to go into the words Maine being on the flag, so we'll move on to the state's population of cryptids. Maine has a lot of interesting cryptids that we can talk about, and a few of them are quite unique to the area. I think our first stop in this travel should be a creature known as a spectral moose. This being has been seen since 1891 up until recently. It is described as being 14 to 15 feet tall, weighs around 2,500 pounds, has 22-point antlers that are 10 to 12 feet wide, brown eyes, and white fur that is said to give off a faint glow. This creature has been said to have been able to vanish without notice, and it can even pass through solid objects. Many hunters have seen this animal through the years, and quite a few of them have even fired upon the beast. Although, true to its name, none of those bullets seem to have any effect on the creature, other than to anger it. The first sighting was by a man named Clarence Duffy, who worked as a guide around Lobster Lake. Shortly after this, a lumberjack named John Ross also saw the creature. Then in 1892, a New York hunter named Howard Van Ness was looking for game around the Norcross area when he encountered this being. Van Ness pulled up his gun and fired many shots at the moose, but each one seemed to miss. The beast immediately turned and charged the hunter, but gave up after the man hid in a mass of tree roots. In 1899, a man named Gilman Brown saw the moose near Roach River, and he fired his gun as well. This time the beast simply stared at him for a while and slowly walked away. In 1906, a man named George Nealand was riding his bicycle between Sherman and Macwahock when he noticed a large white animal that he at first thought was a big horse. When he got off his bike to get a better look, the moose came charging at him, and he only managed to escape by climbing a nearby tree. One odd story claims that a few hunters managed to kill a white moose, and they slit its throat and hung it up for the night. The next morning they awoke to find the body gone without a trace. Later that night, the men witnessed the same moose, still with a slit throat, running through their camp. They fired on the creature again, but it didn't seem to have any effect. It was later spotted again near the Ashford area, and didn't seem to have anything wrong with it. Normally, Bigfoot-type cryptids don't find themselves outside the honorable mentions section, but there are two unique Sasquatch-like beings that are said to roam about the land. Maine has a lot of creatures only found in the lumberjack tales, and most of them are quite outlandish. However, there is one known as the agripelter that may harbor some truth within the outlandish tales. It is described as looking like a monkey that has long, slender arms and makes its home in hollowed-out trees. The creature is said to snap dead branches off and hurl them at unsuspecting victims down below. The damage is said to range from a large welt to even death. These beings are said to have a diet of owls and woodpeckers, but due to the scarcity of both, they tend not to reproduce very often. Now, it is worth noting that many people who have encountered Sasquatch or creatures akin to this claim that they are known to throw objects such as trees and rocks. It is possible that the agripelter is actually a version of Sasquatch, a young one, or is it simply just a made-up tale to explain trees mysteriously falling on lumberjacks? The next being in this category of strange Bigfoot types is known as the Kawakwa. This being is very closely related to the Wendigo, and as such could be considered a spirit, but these creatures are said to be very much living. The name Kawakwa means walks about the woods, and is found in the Penobscot tribe lore. This being is also known to other tribes by different names, with the Mi'kmaq calling it Chinu, and the Passamaquoddy calling it Apotamkin. Regardless of its name, these creatures are giant beings that look very human-like, but are cannibalistic and are said to contain a heart made of ice. They will disguise themselves by rubbing pine tar on their bodies and roll around on the forest floor. As such, they are said to resemble a tree if they stand very still. They can be both male or female, with the female version being more powerful and violent than their counterparts. Either way, both versions will eat humans and each other readily. Now, it is claimed that much like the Wendigo, they begin life as a normal human, but after passing away due to starvation, they will return as this creature. It is said the only way to kill one is to make it eat salt or to chop one apart into many pieces. Some tales claim that they can be handled less violently by giving them a special concoction that will revert them back to their human form. Let's now look at a few other humanoid type beings. The first would be the Goat Man from Cherryfield. According to this story in the 1950s, an avid hunter was driving his truck down a back road on his way home. Suddenly the vehicle stopped moving and he realized the gas gauge indicated that he was out of fuel. What was odd was that he had just filled up before heading down the road. The man left his truck and checked to see if he had a gas leak, but found nothing was wrong. As he stood up, he was shocked to see a strange being standing on the road before him. It was described as being half man, half goat, with the lower half having goat legs and the upper half was covered in a red flannel shirt. The head had two horns and the ears of an animal. The beast grinned at the man and slowly walked into the woods. Startled by this sighting, the man jumped back into his truck and locked the doors. Out of desperation, he tried the ignition again, and amazingly, it fired right back up, and the gauge now read, full. He drove home as fast as he could, but claimed to have never seen the creature again. While there are many questions behind this story, it is said that goat men have been spotted elsewhere in the state, although maybe not looking like Pan from the myths. Our next story is quite interesting, and it involves dogmen. Maine has quite a few reports of dogmen, but none are as fascinating as the one described from the Palmyra area. Eric and Shelley Martin had decided to move into a secluded farmhouse in Maine due to wanting to simplify their lives. Eric was an avid hunter most of his life, and as such he had amassed quite a collection of guns. Shelley wasn't a fan of firearms, so they came to the compromise that they would be kept in the barn under lock and key. After a year of uneventful nights, they started to notice odd things beginning to occur. Eric told his wife that while in the barn, he would frequently catch sight of a ghostly teenage girl that, according to him, looked mean and was dressed in older clothes. One night, while on the porch, the husband and wife saw odd white lights flashing in the forest. Assuming it to be poachers, Eric and his son Sean went out to investigate, but couldn't find anything. Later, their daughter Chelsea was walking in the woods with her boyfriend Nathan, along with their 2 hunting dogs, when the animals caught the scent of something and ran off. When they finally caught up with the dogs, they found them circling a large hole in the ground that appeared smooth, like something had dug it intentionally. Feeling uncomfortable about the situation, the pair returned home. Then on Memorial Day weekend, Shelley was making herself coffee for the evening when she noticed that her dogs didn't want to leave their cages. It was at this moment that Eric became uneasy with the situation and ushered his family inside. Hearing a sound coming from outside, they looked out and saw 5 pairs of glowing, greenish-yellow eyes staring back at them from the woods. It quickly became apparent that these beings were a pack of dogman-like beings, with some of them staying low on all fours, while others would walk on their hind legs. They were covered in dark brown fur, had a long muzzle, kangaroo-shaped legs. They had long claws and pointed ears that rose 3 inches above the head. Eric wanted to try to get the guns, but Shelley feared he wouldn't make it. They knew that they couldn't just sit in the house, so Eric decided to try to get to their vehicle and pull it up close to the porch. The creatures watched him as he slowly walked to the car. As he was about to open the door, one of them started to run at him, but the motion sensor light came on, and it appeared to startle the being, or hurt it, since it ran back immediately. Eric took this moment to run back into the house. The family called the police, but it was obvious that they didn't believe them. So after a few attempts to retrieve a gun failed, the group decided to huddle into one of the bedrooms, just hoping for daybreak. They claimed that all the while they could hear the creatures walking around their house, making odd growling noises that appeared to be some form of communication. For some unknown reason, the beings never tried to enter the house, and by daybreak, they were gone. When they checked for signs of the beings, they found many prints that resembled a huge dog with long claws in the grass and dirt. The family moved out of the house shortly afterward. As usual, I couldn't talk about all the cryptids that are found in this state, but I will add them here for an honorable mention. Of course, I did mention a few oddities in the Bigfoot realm in the main video, but I must note that the standard Bigfoot is known to roam about this state as well. One of the most interesting creatures is mountain lions, but predominantly the black panther. I find this interesting since, much like my home state of Pennsylvania, the game commissions claim that these animals do not exist. However, for years, residents have spotted these beings, and there is even trail camera proof. Outside of this, there are many stories from residents of them encountering massive cats with 3-foot-long tails, varying colors, and leaving behind paw prints that are larger than 4 inches wide. While a bobcat can look fairly large, they do not have a long tail that many of the stories include. There are some sightings of a living pterosaur from all over the state. In 2001, such a creature was seen flying over the Camden area, and it was massive and had distinctive leathery wings. Another odd creature was the one known as Wessie. Unlike what the name might sound like, it was a giant snake seen in the Westbrook area on June 2016. Many saw this creature after the first sighting, and some claim it was simply an escaped Burmese python. Although it should be mentioned that giant snake sightings have a history in Maine since the 1800s. Another being that is found in Native American lore is the Pamola, which is described as having the head of a moose, the body of a man, the wings and legs of an eagle. It is said to reside in the Katahdin Mountains and is viewed as a thunder god. While this lore seems steeped mostly in myth, I have to take note of the description as a large bird that possesses lightning abilities. It wouldn't be hard to make the logical, albeit paranormal leap, to it possibly being the creature known as a thunderbird. Finally, there are a lot of different types of monsters found in various lakes, such as the ones found in Pokemoonshine, Ponegamook, and the Casco Bay sea monster. I do think that the story of the creature from Native American lore, known as the White Monkey, from Saco River, is worth a look. As I end this, I hope you enjoyed hearing these stories, and I always hope I made the state proud. Keep in mind the vote for what state you would like to see next. Wisconsin has pulled ahead in first place, and there are 4 to 5 other states just prone to take its spot. At this point, anything could happen. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my videos with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.